Now we're ready to add all of our ripples in the water. So how we're going to do that is I'm going to take a 1/4 flat or a number 6 or an 8, as long as it has a nice chisel. I'm going to pick up soft black, flatten my brush to a nice chisel, and I'm going to start with my brush. Now you have to make sure you're going the direction of your ground line. So you keep in line, you pay attention to that. So I'm just going to take with my brush on the chisel, slide, press, slide. So I'm leaving little bits of gaps of the watercolor. Now we're coming right from the boat. Doesn't matter if we get a bit on the boat, but you're not wanting to leave a little trim around the side of the boat. So it's press, slide, press, slide. You back up to the chisel, press down. Now this is all in soft black that we're going to do along the bottom. So it's going to be quite dark at the bottom. And then as we work our way up, we're going to get a little wider. And I'm going to pick up, now on this side, I'm going to pick up the Perfect Perry and the soft black together. Mix them on the palette, just brush mix them together. And we'll start to get a little wider apart, little bigger ripples. Now I've got a bit of the berry in the water up there, so I'll pick up a little berry with the mix as well now. So it's the soft black, Perfect Perry, and some of the berry. And we'll just slide in these ripples. They're getting further apart as they get up here. And if you look and you feel like you want to break in between a few of the spots that you already have, slide that over. I've already done the other side, but I'll slide that over and bring some of the colors together so that they just kind of mix. But you see how we leave more room in between them as we get up there. That just implies that the ripples are, the further apart they are, the further away the ripples are going. So they're tighter close to the boat down at the bottom. I'll make these a little bit darker here. There. So that's our nice ripples in the water in our background. Now I am going to take a little bit of soft black and bring a little tiny bit up by the shoreline. So we'll have a little bit coming from the shoreline, not much. Just, and this is not ripples, this is just going to be a little bit of shadow in the water. And we're going to fade it off. We're not going to go completely across. And then I'll come over to the other side and bring the same thing. And it's just replicating the hills in the background. Just sliver on down. So we've got it on both sides over here. Whoa, getting you dizzy. And over there. So it's just a little bit in the background. Now it's time to make clouds in our sky. So I'm going to take, you can use a 1/4 or 3/8 lunar blender. I'm picking up a little bit of soft black and Perfect Perry on my brush. I don't want to have too much. I blot it on my paper towel. And then I'm just going to take my brush, flat to the surface and smudge my way along. Come down a little bit. And repeat a little bit more. I'll add I'm not going to put too many clouds. We just want to have a bit. And I'll work my way, just bringing a little off the edges. Some of them I'll just kind of bring up close to each other, so that doesn't look too bad. Now I'm going to take a little tiny bit of just soft black, pat that out, and come in here and there, not completely across all of them, but just a few places in. And this is going to give a little depth. In our clouds. And it's a nice scuffy dry brush you want to have. Now some people don't want to put any clouds in theirs. This is a total option. You don't have to. It was fine without them. I might still bring this a little higher up. And now I'm going to switch to my 1/4 for sure. So if you were using a 1/4 the whole time, you just clean it out. And I'm going to take the coral, this berry, and I'm going to come along the bottoms of a few of them and add this reflection in a few places. And then I'm going to get a little tiny bit of vintage pink. And I don't need to clean the brush. It's the same 1/4 inch. I'll pick up the vintage pink, scuff that off on my towel. And scuff in a bit of vintage pink into these clouds. Now I've switched to my 1/8 domed stippler, and I'm picking up Perfect Perry and a bit of sand. And I just brush mix those together on the palette, scuff them off on my paper towel, and then I'm going to take and I'm going to add my soft, fluffy bit to the tops of the clouds. This just gives them that little bit of a smoky look. Perfect Perry, sand, scuff it off on my toweling. Now everybody's is going to be different. You may choose to have a little, it depends how bright your sky is, right? So you may choose to put a little bit more of the sand in there. I think right there I could use a bit more sand. Yeah, like that. So I'm just scuffing this little bit of soft fluffy tops to the clouds. And that gives me my nice sunset clouds that are drifting through here. Put a little crisper top here. There we go. And there's our nice sunset and our clouds. Now we're going to do some dry brushing and highlighting. I've taken neutral gray with my liner and I've filled in these areas, just outlining on the rod, the side of the reel, things like that, that are going to have a little bit of reflection. I'm going to take my 1/8 lunar blender, pick up soft black and neutral gray. So I picked up both, brush them off on my towel, and I'm going to scuff across and create some highlights on our reel. So a little highlight in here, a little highlight there, little on the top. We're going to scratch some highlight down the middle of the rod. I think I need a little bit more fresh. I'll scuff a little across here. Now, this rounded part on our downrigger, we're going to scratch a highlight. This is again neutral and soft black. We'll scuff a little highlight there. I'm going to pop that one up a bit more and down the handle. Just pop everything up until you can see it. I'm going to put just neutral on the tops of these, but I don't want to bring it all the way down. I just want to have it a little bit brighter there. I want a nice bright highlight there. Down here, I'm not pressing hard. We'll put a little out on the shaft. There's not too much out that way. And these two pins that hold it on, give it a little rounded there. And we've got this section here. This is going to be This is a silver metal shaft. So I'm just going to kind of base it with my 1/8 coming down. I'll take some of my mix and I'm going to come along the sides and just have a few dark scratchies in there. But that's actually a shiny metal. I'm going to take neutral and a tiny bit of sand and come across there. Very lightly down here. And I'll put a little highlight on these 2 pins. Highlight there. And we've got these metal rim on the edge of the boat. So I'll just kind of pop that up. We don't want to have them base coated solid. So we get a nice bit of scratchy on them. You can still see through them. A little of that metal there. And then it's here as well. And if it has that shimmery look to it with getting a little bit of our wood grain in there, that doesn't matter. That's all good. I'm going to just shape the edge of that. Pop a little more highlight in there. Just popping them up. I'm not covering the complete highlight. I'm going to put a little on that edge and lighten a little coming down there. I don't want it too bright down there. This is the floor of the boat. So we're going to take a little soft black and neutral. And just scuff that in there. Take a little of that and come down that line as well. So a little neutral and soft black just to show the edge. I think I'll bring a little more highlight in this side of the boat here, not much. Just scuff, more of a scuff. I am going to take a little neutral and soft black and highlight this line. And then the neutral gray on the side of that reel we're going to take with our lunar blender, the little 1/8 guy, and I'm going to dirty a scuff on there just to shade it. We don't want to take the time to shade it, but we just want to calm it down a little bit. There. So it's there, but it's not too bright. And then I'll come in and do a little bit of the same next to the shaft here, there. I think it could use a little brighter of the gray here. Maybe I'll widen these. That doesn't look too bad. A few scratchies there. That looks pretty good. Now, the little tiny lines here for your wires that your fishing line is going through, you can choose to do those with your inking pen. I'm going to erase all my transfer lines now so that they don't show anymore. And that'll give you an idea of anywhere that you think you might need to pop up your highlight lines. That doesn't look too bad. And now I'm going to use my liner, sand gray and neutral gray, and just add a fine, very dainty popping up of a few places. And it's a scratching of the liner. You see how it's a broken line? What shows, shows, and if it doesn't, that's all good. And I think I could have another. That just kind of sets it off nice. At the bottom of this shaft here, I am going to shade with a little of the soft black and under the piece, just to, yeah, that's better. So I want to do a line for the fishing line coming here, so I'm going to do what I'm going to call cheat, and I'm going to use an inking pen. I'm using my Micron pen, a 005, real fine. I'm going to use a ruler. Now, you don't like to run a fine tip pen against a ruler, but this ruler is bowed out. So if I put it upside down and I set it here upside down, I can take my pen and I'm not touching the ruler with my tip. So now I have a nice fine line. I also have another line. I want to have another line coming on this, and it's going to come from here to here. So again, don't press too hard. All the way back to here. So there's our line. Now we do also have a line from the fishing rod, and it is coming from the rod, and you've got to make sure you line your rod up. It's coming from the rod in the water, and it disappears behind there. Now that line also is going to be coming through here. And the key to this is if you see it, you see it. It's one of those that we're going to end up putting a smidge of a highlight against it. So where it's broken, where it's not quite showing up, this is through those little eyes. And I'm just going to use the pen without the ruler because it's going to curve along here and it disappears behind because the eyes are on the other side. So where we see it, and if it breaks, that's fine as well. Now, I'm also going to use my pen to do the little hook and eye. I'm going to get a bit better pen than that. I have a bad habit of abusing my pens. All right. So I'm going to do my circle and it attaches. And then we don't see them from there on. Now, if you can be so delicate with your liner and do a real fine highlight. So I'm thinning down sand really fine, and I just want to kind of, I guess I need it not quite thinned that fine. I still need to see sand. Okay, just checking that you can see where I'm doing this. So I'll just take the odd spot and I'll bring some of this really fine sand, like a highlight shimmer from the reflection on my line. I'm only going to put it on the line that's coming from the fishing rod. I can see through my fishing rod right here, so I think it's best if I thicken that up a bit with some more of my soft black mix. I think I've got a bit there. And it wouldn't hurt to take and put, I think I'll use a little tiny bit of the, my brain's got fried here, a little tiny bit of our vintage pink. And I'm just, it's just with my liner, I'm just going to add a little fine shimmer of a highlight here and there. That looks good. And what I want to do now, my last thing, is I'm just going to prepare it to shade around. I always like to shade with my soft black around my piece. So I'm going to start with, I've got a 1 inch, you can use a 1 inch or a 3/4, side loaded in soft black, and I'm going to come along from the land down and shade nice and soft. You can choose if you'd like to mop that. A lot of people like to mop their shading if they don't feel they've got a nice soft float. Now what I want you to keep in mind, because I used an inking pen, if you're going to do all your lines with a liner for your fishing lines, just this being a slab, a lot of times you kind of have to make sure you're getting in those little cracks. But you want to make sure that I'm going to give this a spray with a matte spray before I brush varnish my varnish on it. I like my DuraClear varnish, and it's good to go outside too, and most often these pieces will be going outside. So I do want to make sure that I allow my matte spray to go over my inking lines. Because if you brush varnish over your pen and ink lines, or your inking pen, it tends to give it a smear. So if you give it a little quick coat with a matte spray, just a fine mist, and that will help. Now I am going to float along the top, and this again is a preference for some people. Some people prefer not to float in their skies. It's totally up to yourself. So it's the soft black again, nice and soft. I can start from my ground. It just kind of brings, it's like putting a frame on it, I feel. Nice and soft. I never really just float in one swipe. As long as your brush is loaded, you got your water heading the right way. Nice and soft. Float along there. And that just pulls your eye back into your picture. I'll come along the bottom, even though it's painted there, but where we've done our dry brushing, that gives a nice soft shadow there as well. So it just pulls your eyes back into your picture, and it does a nice finishing for it. So like I say, I will give it a matte spray before I brush my brush varnish on there. That's just if you are using the inking pen. If you're not using the inking pen and you're using your liner to do those, then you don't need to do that. You can just go with your brush varnish. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed painting this scene with me, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. Thank you.